What is up, people? I'm here today to teach you how to write a comic book. That's right. Alright, so what do we start with when writing a comic book? Well, personally, I like to start with an idea. Now, this isn't really an idea I had or that I was stewing. I just kind of made it up on the spot, so it's kind of trash. It's a bunch of random stuff, but you get the point. You kind of want to stew on it for a little while. Do not stew on it forever. Some people are like, oh, I have the world's greatest idea, and I'm just gonna stew on it forever and never write it because I know it's such a great idea. No, your idea is trash until you actually write it. I'm sorry, because the chances of it being good once you actually write it out are very slim. You're probably going to write it out, be like, this is going to be the greatest idea. And then once you're in the middle of the story, you're like, wow, this idea is not as good as I thought it was. Because that's just how it is. That's just writing, buddy. That's just how it goes. So don't sit stewing on it forever. And that brings me to my next thing, outlining. Now, some people don't like to outline. Some people outline forever. And I think that's a terrible idea, but whatever. I just do very simple, very crude, very quick outlines. I don't like wasting my time on outlines for too long. You can do whatever you want, but this is what I do. So I go on Google Docs because it's free and it's easy, and I start with characters, the most important part of story. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Some people will be like, oh, I gotta focus on my world building. Shut up. Characters are what make story, alright? Them and their beliefs. Simple as that. Characters are what hold the beliefs, that creates the conflict, that drives the story. So, yeah. Alright, so what is the conflict of each character? Like, you gotta think of their wants. So, for example, Jim Mason, he wants to be a lawyer. Why? Because he wants to make money. Now, you could create like a wound. You could create like whatever you want. You could be like, oh, he wants to make money because he was poor his whole life. Whatever, right? Giving them a reason as to why is not a bad thing. So anyway, and that's what will create the conflict. The overall conflict of the story, and it's a conflict of character beliefs. It's not an external conflict. It's not really an internal conflict. It's more of like a philosophical conflict where it will it's their beliefs that clash. So obviously, Jim Mason's beliefs are in the money side of things. Whereas Beth Abby, I don't know who this is. I guess it's his girlfriend, let's say. All right. So it's his girlfriend, right? She's on the family side of things. And we got Carl Chicken here, the legend. He is in between, I guess. You can have tons of different characters that are in all different sides of these beliefs. Some who agree with it, some who disagree, some who are in the middle, some who are totally away from it. There's so many ways you could do this, right? So after that, you can go on to the world building. Now, this is a more grounded story. This isn't fantasy or sci-fi or anything like that. But if it was fantasy or sci-fi, you could ask questions like, what planet are they on? What is its environment? What creatures inhabit the planet? What is time like? Like, you could go on forever. It's kind of insane. Like, world building, this is why so many people get stuck in the world building trap, is because you could go on all day just world building stuff. Seriously, you could. It's ridiculous. So anyway, that's not the most important thing, but it is a nice cherry on top, especially if you have a sci-fi story where it's kind of interwoven. Yeah. So anyway, I do screenplay format because I'm a screenwriter and I write movies, and it's just easier for me to write in the way that I know how to write. So I use a 3-act structure. Now, you can use any goddamn structure you want. It doesn't matter. All you need to do is create these little bullet points, which represent each scene of the story. Okay? So let's say the first bullet point is Jim debates Beth about family versus money. Jim meets Carl at the store. They talk about their dreams. Carl gets hit by a car. I don't know why, but you get the point. You get the point, right? And each bullet point represents a scene that you will write out. Now, if you are like really stuck, it's okay. I suggest you go and read some more books, or you go and watch some movies or something like that. Like, the ideas will come to you, don't worry. But it's nice to have all of these out, because when you're making it up on the spot, which I've done numerous times, it can get to a point where you're like, I don't know where this story is going. You know what I mean? So you don't want that to happen. So the actual writing process, what software do we use to write? Now you could use Google Docs. It works. I've seen people do it. But in my opinion, a more efficient way and a faster way, especially in screenplay format, is to use an actual script writing software. Studio Binder is free. Now, you only get to write one script at a time, and then you have to delete it and then put another one in its place. So it's kind of a pain in the ass, and that's why I like using Final Draft instead, which we'll get to, but it is a good free option. But like I said, I use Final Draft, which looks like this. So what do you want to start with Final Draft? How do we use Final Draft, right? It's very simple. Very, very simple. I like to start with my page number, so my artist isn't confused. Then we want to bold and underline. You can also bold and underline the page numbers, but I don't really do that. Then we want to put in a panel. Now, a panel is the individual boxes that you see on a comic book. That's what a panel is. Each page, I've noticed, all the artists I've worked with like around 6 panels at max. They don't like really more than that, because then their art has to get kind of cramped in, unless you do like extreme close-ups. Then you can do like, I don't know, like 10 panels or something. But most artists don't like when you use that many panels, because their art kind of suffers for it, and it's also hard as hell to letter. So how do you write a panel? It's pretty simple, to be honest. You just want to give a description of one action, and that's it. It's different than a screenplay, because obviously with the screenplay you can do a ton of actions within one action line, but with a panel, obviously each motion is a different action, unless they, you know, do some like creative artwork there. But pretty much one panel is one action. So for example, Jim walks through the green grass, his feet crunching through as Beth watches. Gotta capitalize Beth. As Beth watches, right? So there you go. Very, very simple. The more detail though you put in, I noticed, the better the art usually turns out. But some artists don't like as much detail in the panels. Some people like more. My artist personally, I think he does better when I have more detail, so I would have way longer lines than this, way more detail, but it's whatever. And let's say Beth is like calling him out from a distance. So Beth is like, she's like, Jim, over here. I don't know, something like that, right? So she's calling him over. And you also have to think of like the lettering while you're writing. Like, okay, how many? Oh my God. Do not oversaturate the page with a million bubbles of like ridiculous amounts of text. That is the most annoying thing. Use visual storytelling. I feel like a lot of people do not know how to make concise, short dialogue that gets straight to the point. This is a comic book, bro. I don't want to read like a 9 million page long bubble of dialogue. Like, you know how annoying that is? Anyway, but yeah, so this gets the point across. And if you want a narrator, like if you want the narrator boxes, no narrator, boom. The day is warm. Beth is warm. Her hair smells like fucking roses. I don't fucking know. But you get what I'm saying here, right? And you could do, like I said, you want to vary up the panels. Okay? You don't want it to be 2 panels for the whole 20 pages. You know what I mean? So let's say we do page 2. Page 2. Now we do 1. Bada bing. 2. bada bing, 3, boom, boom, 4. So now we do 4 panels. Then the next one we could do 6 panels. Then the next one we could do a full page. Then the next one we could do 3 panels. Just randomize it to keep the reader interested. But if you feel that you absolutely need a certain amount of panels for a page and it's just 2 in a row, that's not that big of a deal. You just don't want the whole book to be repetitive, the same amount of panels over and over and over and over again, unless that's kind of what you're going for. Like some comics are just like consistent. They're like 3 panels on every page. It's like, I don't know. You could do that. You could not. So yeah, but that's essentially how you write a comic book. There's really not much more to it other than getting into story fundamentals and actually finishing the damn book. Listen, your first draft is not going to be perfect. I don't care how good of a writer you are. The chances of your first draft being amazing are slim to none. So just get the thing out so you could see it as a whole. Especially with the comic book, man. If it's only like 20 pages, come on, that's nothing. Especially for a comic book because you're going panel by panel. You're not going actually like page by page. Way easier to write a comic book than it is a screenplay, in my opinion. So get it out there. You know, get it out there. Put in the work. Write. Get better. If you have any other questions, comment down below and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. But if you want to be a better filmmaker, a better writer, a better level designer for games, then subscribe to this channel because we got plenty of more videos coming for you. Alright? And if you liked the video, why don't you give it a like? If you didn't like the video, give it a like anyway. I'll see you guys in the next one.